Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey, and today we are going to make some flautas. So I've got some turkey meat here left over from past holidays that I've had in the freezer. I cooked it down with some onions and then shredded it. I added salt, pepper, and cumin, garlic. I think that's it, maybe some onion. But it's still frozen, so I'm going to stick this in the microwave and start thawing it while I get everything else set up.
So here I'm taking all of the bags of frozen turkey meat that I had, and I'm putting it in this pot, and then I'm going to add an onion, and I'm going to cook that down until it's all warmed through. So after the meat cooled a little bit, I shredded it all up, and now I'm struggling to open this jug, but I'm adding some cumin to each of these bowls of meat. So now I'm going to add a little bit of minced garlic to both these bowls of meat. This is the garlic that you buy already chopped up at the store that's sitting in water or oil, whatever it's sitting in. I'm just going to add a spoonful to each of these and stir that in. Once I got all of that mixed up really well, I just transferred it all into the one large Tupperware bowl, and I'm just going to put a lid on that and stick it in the fridge until I'm ready to make the flautas.
I've got a Presto fryer here. I've got some oil in it heating up. I've got a cutting board here that I'm going to use to roll my flautas, and then I've got a bunch of corn tortillas. And we buy the Perez thin corn tortillas because if you buy the thick ones, it's really hard to roll them. So we always use these. I had never even heard of flautas before I married my husband, and my mother-in-law used to make these for a lot of holidays, and they were super popular. And they still are with everybody in the family. So I've got to wait until my meat is thawed a little bit that I can start working on these. So I've got my... Oh goodness, I've got my turkey meat started to thaw where I can get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and prep my tortillas. So I always wrap them in a towel and then warm them in the microwave. If you try to roll them when the tortillas are cold, you're just going to end up with them tearing. Now, I tear them anyway, but if they're cold, they definitely will tear. So I put them in for about, let's see, there's three, look at this. There's 3 dozen in each package. I put them in for about 45 seconds to a minute, and that's usually about right. All right, so I've got my tortillas, and I'm going to keep them wrapped up until I'm ready to use them. So just pull one out, and I want to use, you can fill these as much or as little as you want. I usually kind of go middle of the road just because I tend to like the thinner ones, but you can do whatever works for you. And then roll them up, and then use a toothpick to secure the other end of the tortilla. If you can find flat toothpicks, those tend to work better, but regular toothpicks work as well. And then I just lay them seam side down on a cookie sheet so that I can do some, stack them up, and then fry them. Normally, I will roll one package and then start frying it and start rolling the second package. That way you don't have them just all stacked up, but you can do whatever works for you. So I've got about that much in there, and just kind of push it mostly to one side, and I just kind of hold it with my fingers as I start rolling the tortilla. Roll it pretty tight. And then use your toothpick to hold it together. So as I said, our whole family loves these. My daughter-in-law, these are the favorite. This is the favorite. Out of the things that I make, if I could talk, these are one of her favorite things. She's always asking for them. We were talking about Christmas Eve. We moved to a new house right after Christmas last year. We moved from a little place in the city to a property south of the city where we've got 15 acres. We've got a bigger house, more room for the kids and the grandkids. So this first Christmas, all the kids are going to come over and spend the night. So that will be fun. And so we were talking about what I was going to do food-wise, whether I wanted to make some food or just do something like snacky foods. And she was like, flautas. So we'll see. I'm going to end up with quite a lot out of this batch of meat, so we'll see what I end up doing. And don't worry if they don't end up perfect. I mean, once you fry them, they're going to look a lot better than you think they're going to look. And even if they're kind of broken or not perfect looking, they still taste good. And I'm not running a restaurant, I'm just feeding my family. And so if they're not perfect, my family is okay with that. And typically, if I'm going to make flautas, I'm going to make a lot because, you know, getting out the tortillas, the oil, the meat, frying them. If you're going to make a mess, you might as well make a lot. And then you can put them in the freezer and then just pull them out for a quick meal. Just throw them in the oven, heat them up, and throw your sides with them, and they're ready to go. So I think I'm trying to remember if I bought 12 or 15 packages of tortillas. I don't know if that's gonna be enough for this meat or be too many for this meat. I don't know. But I'll just keep rolling until I either run out of meat or run out of tortillas and go from there. I'm making these with the turkey that I had left over from previous, Easter or whatever, whenever I had made a turkey. But you can make it with anything. You can make them with chicken, you can make them with beef. My mother-in-law has made them before with potatoes during Lent so that they could eat them. But really, in my opinion, no matter what you put in a corn tortilla and then fry it up, it's delicious. This meat might not actually be thawed as much as I need it to be. I can kind of only pull from around the edges of this bowl, but hopefully as I work through these, it'll start thawing up. I don't know, it's very cold outside today. I live in the Kansas City area, just south of the metro. Today is November 12th, and it was like 14 degrees a couple of hours ago. So we're having unseasonably cold weather for this time of year. And I don't want to run my heater a whole bunch this early in the season. So I'm trying to not turn it up too high. But I don't know about you guys, but I usually warm up a lot when I'm cooking. This is one of the things that I like to make with leftover turkey. I pull just the white meat out. If we have a bunch of white meat left over, I'll use it for flautas. I also will use the bones and make some bone broth, or I'll cook all the meat that's left off the carcass and make turkey noodle soup. My kids really love that. So that's always a nice way to use up some leftover turkey. And plus it makes a nice hearty meal in the winter. The turkey, the noodles, potatoes, oh, so good. You cannot have any, puppy. The beauty of having a bunch of these made up and in the freezer is not only do you have a nice quick meal, but also these are messy when you make them. So if you only make the mess once because you make a lot, that's always a bonus in my book. If I can make a lot of something that I can stick in the freezer so that I only dirty up my kitchen one time, that is always a plus. Plus I'm leaving on Sunday. I'm going to a conference for my job and I'll be out of town all week. So this will be something that'll be easy for my husband when he gets home from work to just throw in the oven. He works sort of weird hours. So some days he doesn't get home until 8 or 9 o'clock. And so if he's hungry for an actual meal, he can just throw some of these in the oven, warm them up, and eat them. And if he doesn't want to eat a full meal in the evening, he could take some out and take them for lunch the next day. They're not as good warmed up in the microwave, but they're not bad. They lose that kind of crispness of the fried tortilla. So this conference that I'm going to for work, this is the first time since COVID that it'll be back in person again. So I'm super excited. It'll be in Nashville. And I am really excited to see all the people that I haven't seen in person for several years. Meet some of the new people that I've been working with over the last few months. And see all my coworkers in person, because this job is a fully work from home job. It's all remote. In fact, all of us, it's a small company and the employees live all over the United States. So we typically just see each other on Zoom calls. So this will be nice. All right, so here is the last tortilla out of this first package. So I'm gonna get it rolled up. And then I think I'm gonna put this meat back in the microwave while I start frying up this first batch of tortillas. While I start frying up this first batch of flautas that I have rolled. Okay, so I've got my basket here and I'm going to put these in seam side down. Gotta kind of work around the toothpicks to get them to stay. And I try to put 5 across, kind of fits perfectly in this basket that I have, the size I have on that bottom row, or that bottom layer, I guess. And then I usually can get 6, and see here I've torn one of them, but it'll be fine. So I got 6 on that second level layer, whatever I'm trying to say. And oh, that one's torn too. And I usually can get 6 on this top one. So I have the screen here that I use to put over it when I'm frying them, because it does splatter quite a bit when you first put them in. So I'm just gonna put those in. And then I just lay that over the top. Just kind of helps prevent a little bit of the grease splatter. And you just want to let those fry until the tortillas are pretty crisp. Usually takes 45 seconds or so. Maybe not that long. And when you're frying this many, you'll occasionally have to add more oil to your pot because it'll get used up. So you just want to make sure that you give that time to heat back up, because otherwise you're putting it in oil that's cold and they'll just end up greasy. So you don't want that. My mother-in-law used to make these a lot for the whole family, and she's got 3 kids, all married, all have kids. We have grandkids. So you get everybody in that house. There's a lot of people eating, and everybody loves these. So she makes a lot at one time. So I'm gonna just let that sit. If I can get, there we go. I'm gonna let that sit and just drain a little bit. Move my stuff over here. We'll let those drain just a little bit, and then I'm just going to dump them onto, I put some foil. In fact, I might get another sheet. I put some foil underneath my fryer and kind of on my work surface so that my cleanup is going to be a little bit easier. I still end up with grease everywhere, but this does make a difference. So I'm going to put this, oops, I'm going to get one more sheet out here. I have some wide, like the wider foil, but it's in the basement and I didn't think about it until I already had this pulled out. We'll let those drain for just a little bit until we get some of that excess grease out of the fryer pan or tray or whatever you want to call this. And then we'll just dump them onto the foil. And while the next batch is in, then I can pull the toothpicks out. You can kind of dump these around a little bit. You got to be careful, or at least I have to be careful. My handle is a little loose, so I've got to be careful here when I'm doing this. Try and get some of this extra grease to drain out. All right, so I'm just going to dump this over here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and load my next basket. And now I have to be careful because this basket is hot. Basket, that's the word I was looking for a minute ago. My goodness. Uh-oh. And sometimes if they tear quite a bit, I'll roll them in another tortilla, just wrap it around the one that's there. But usually I don't bother. I just cook them and I figure, oh, except I ruined that one. People will eat them or they won't, but trust me, they will. All right, put this second batch in. Roll this one. Oh yeah, this one needs a new tortilla. All right, so I'm gonna put this next batch of tortillas in the microwave, and then when they come out, I will re-roll this one, because it's totally coming apart. So now what I do with the ones that are coming out of the fryer, I've got another cookie sheet here, and I just put a layer of paper towels down. And see here, these kind of broke, but that's okay. So I'm just going to pull all these toothpicks out. Oh, I've got a lot of broken ones. I probably filled them too full. Sometimes that's what will cause them to tear. I'm gonna lay all these seam side down as much as possible, except when they look like that. And this seems like it takes forever, but once you kind of get a rhythm of rolling and frying and all of that, it actually goes pretty quickly. And the end result is so well worth it. So I'll try and fill these not quite as full and see if that makes a difference. And sometimes they just tear. The toothpick through the tortilla just, you know, it just rips it, and it's fine. Oh, I forgot I was going to redo that one. So I just take it already rolled, put it in a fresh tortilla, and just wrap them together. No sense in wasting that other tortilla. All right. I'll go ahead and dump this batch out here. I might add actually a little bit more oil. I think it's not quite full enough. And then I'll just have to make sure I let this totally heat up again. Whoop. Yeah, I think that's better. Well, that is not what I wanted to do. So I cleaned up the basket. The dog is going to be helpful and clean up the floor for me. He's very excited. I'm going to add these to my cookie tray that has, oh whoops, I didn't get them all done. With the fried flautas on them. And when the tray is full, then I just add another layer of paper towels and just keep stacking on top. And this will just help, you know, kind of soak up some of that excess grease as they cool. So I'm gonna set this out of my way, and I'm just gonna keep rolling and frying. I'm down to this little pile of meat, and I did reduce the amount of meat that I was putting in them, and that made a huge difference. Most of them are ending up looking a lot better. I still had some that tore, like this one I just rolled, but that's all right. At one time I had made some, I don't know, several years ago. And I said something to my mother-in-law that I had made flautas, and I said they were delicious, but they weren't as pretty as hers. And she said, Mickey, mine don't all come out pretty. I have some ugly ones. And I said, oh, I guess we just don't ever see them. And she said, nobody does, because I eat them. So I thought that was pretty funny. My problem is, if I ate all of the flautas that came out ugly, I'd have a week's worth of calories in one sitting and nobody else would get any. So I'm gonna roll up these last few. I've used 7 full packages of tortillas. I'm on package 8. And I'm gonna have a little bit left. So I'm gonna use that to just make some homemade chips. We do that a lot with our leftover tortillas. And then, of course, they're amazing. All right, so I've got about, I don't know, maybe half a pack of tortillas here. And I've got all the meat rolled up, so I'm just gonna, these are kind of hard from earlier, but I'm just gonna tear these in pieces. And then when this last batch of tortilla, or when the last batch of flautas is done, I'm just gonna throw these in batches and cook them like that. So I've got one package out here and 3 in the fridge, so I've got 4 packages. I was thinking about cooking a roast and making some beef ones, but I've got to get ready for my trip out of town tomorrow, so I'm not going to have time to do them. And I don't know how well these tortillas freeze, but we're going to find out, because the ones that are left, I'm going to put them in the freezer, and they may not work very well once I take them back out, but it doesn't hurt to try. Oops. Okay, so I got my salt, because I want to salt these as soon as they come out of the fryer so that the salt will stick to the oil that's still on them. So I'm just going to put, you don't want to put too many in there because then they kind of bog down and they don't cook very well. And I'm going to use a fork to kind of stir them around. Ow. Ow. And when you stop hearing the bubbles, that's when they're done, typically. Let these drain just a few minutes. All right, so I'm gonna dump these in this little cookie sheet here. Spread them out a little bit and salt them. And then put about another 1/3 of this in here. And put these in. Then while this last batch of chips is draining, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So the awesome thing about using this foil is that now I can just roll this up with the toothpicks and grease and everything inside it and just throw it away, and then most of my mess is cleaned up. I'm going to take this pot and I'm just going to set it back here until that oil cools. And then I'm going to pour it back into the original container that I've been using. I usually use this oil 2 or 3 times to fry flautas, and then when it gets too dark, then I get rid of it. But that way I can just reuse it instead of using fresh every single time. Since I'm just frying the same thing, I'm gonna clean this up. So you can see using that foil down underneath all this made a huge difference. It made it really easy to clean up. So we've got 2 trays of flautas and our tray of homemade chips. I used, what did I say, 7.5 packages that had 3 dozen in each. So we ended up with 250, 260 flautas, something like that. So I'm going to leave these here, let them continue draining and cooling. When they're completely cool, then I'm going to put them in Ziploc baggies, mark them, and put them in my freezer. And then when we want some, we can just pull them out, throw them in the oven, and cook them. Okay, when I started out, I had the ones that were all falling apart. When I didn't put as much meat in them, they ended up staying together a lot better. But I do have 2 ugly ones here. And my husband and I are going to make like my mother-in-law and eat the ugly ones because we don't want anybody to see our mess. Maybe you want to try one? Yeah. So when we eat them for dinner, we will have rice, we'll have Spanish rice, and we'll also have sour cream and salsa and all that. But we're just going to eat these just like this.
I'm sure they're good.
I'm sure they are. Delicious. I know, you can't have one. He's gonna follow my husband and hope that he drops. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay, so our flautas are all fried up, and we're gonna go ahead and start some rice that we can have with our dinner tonight. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of olive oil in my pot. I've got a cup of rice there. Gonna pour that into my pan, and we're gonna toast up our rice before we cook it. So while our rice is toasting, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the oven on so that we can heat our flautas back up for dinner. And I'm gonna put it on, because they're thawed, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on 400, and then we'll cook them about 20-25 minutes. My rice is starting to get some browning on it. We don't want to burn them, we just want them to brown just a little bit. We're gonna add some garlic, and you can use fresh garlic. I have some minced garlic in the fridge, so that's what I'm gonna use. I'm also going to use just some minced onion that I have. I don't have any small pieces of onion in my refrigerator, and I don't want to cut into one, just for the little bit that I need right here. So I'm going to use that. And then I'm using some of this Knorr chicken bouillon. I'm going to use just a couple of spoons of that. This gives it some good flavor, but you have to be careful. It's pretty salty. And then we're going to add a little bit of tomato sauce. This is some home canned sauce that I have. And then I heat it up. Heated up 3 cups of water to boiling, and I'm going to stir about, what did I put in there? You want to put in, usually put in about 2 to 2.5, and then you can add more if you need it. So I've got all that stirred in, and I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit, and then we want to cover this and let it cook for about 15 minutes. So rice is one of those things for me that sometimes it comes out amazing, sometimes it comes out like junk. I swear I do it exactly the same way every time, and I get different results. Clearly I'm doing something different, I just don't realize it. My mother-in-law, well, there's a joke among all of the family that when she's gone, we get her rice pan. Everybody's fighting over her rice pan. She's made rice in the same pan for 40 years, and her rice is amazing every single time. So everybody thinks it's the pan that makes the rice so good. And I believe that that's partly true. So I've got some flautas out on a cookie sheet. I've got a pizza pan here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put those in the oven to warm up while my rice is cooking. And while your rice is cooking, you don't want to touch it until that first 15 minutes is done. And then we're going to very gently kind of flip it over so that it just cooks through. So our timer has gone off on our rice, and it looks like this. So we're going to flip it very gently. You don't want to stir it too much because then it gets mushy. And it looks like it might need just a little bit more water. I'm going to pour just a little bit in there. I'm going to put the lid back on. So I put the lid back on, and I'm going to cook it for another 10 or 15 minutes. So I set this timer for 10, and then I'll take a look at it after 10 minutes and see if I think it needs a few more. Okay, so take this off and I'm going to give this a taste and see if the rice is done. It is. So today was one of my good rice days. Okay, so I did go ahead and just cut up a little bit of lettuce while everything was finishing cooking. I thought I had a tomato, but the couple that we had were not good, so we won't have a tomato. That's okay. So now I'm going to figure out where I want to put this on my plate. Let's see. No. So now I'm going to put a decent sized pile of sour cream. Oops, I got sour cream in your lettuce, huh?
It's unacceptable.
And we do have more sour cream. Just finishing that. And then we're going to pour some salsa over the top of that. Actually, let me just give this kind of a shake. Here's our dinner. All right, so I want to thank you guys for watching this video today. I appreciate the time that you take out of your day to watch me in my kitchen while I experiment and mess up and make messes and talk to the dog, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, please like. If you are not subscribed and you enjoy what you're seeing on this channel, please consider subscribing. And I will talk to you on the next video. Thanks, everybody.